Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you. I do very much. Thank you for watching the show today, tuning on in, as you guys have been ever so through this off season. And today we were going to originally do the cross show, but I'm going to do that one tomorrow. Today I want to talk a little bit about run defense. I know it's not the sexiest of concepts to cover. And for a lot of people, they wonder about maybe how much run defense really matters at this point. For me, from my perspective, and looking into this and kind of looking at where the trends are going in the NFL recently, I think it's going to be the most important part of this defense, beyond generating pressures, beyond being good in coverage, beyond how they tackle, beyond maybe penalties being an issue. This, to me, will be the main thing that will be the impetus upon whether or not the Seattle Seahawks defense can rise up and become really an elite unit, or if they're merely going to be a good unit. Now, part of this has to do with the trend of the NFL. Part of this has to do with the trend of Mike Macdonald's defenses. Every defense is going to have some limiting factor. There is no perfectly designed, perfectly structured defense that covers every part of the field in every place. You have to choose in some place when you're designing your defense some form of weakness somewhere. It's just the way that this works. And Macdonald has chosen that form to be in slightly when it comes to defending the run. Not as bad, but just that there's the potential weakness there. So this is going to be hugely important for the Seahawks to be able to lock this down. Last year, you had a tale of two seasons really in how you stopped the run overall. You had the first half where it wasn't too good, mainly on the back of the fact that you had Baker and Dodson as your two inside linebackers, and you eventually transitioned to Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones as your two inside linebackers. And that made a whale of a difference, and mainly just because they could get off blocks and still get back into the ball carrier. Really at the heart of why there's a bit of a vulnerability in Macdonald's defense is that he's going to typically run a little bit of the lighter boxes when it comes to defending the run than other teams might, where they'd have an extra guy down in there. And then his alignments on his defensive line are going to sometimes widen out in certain spots to provide some natural crevices there, some natural cracks for the running backs to be able to have a decent little natural hole there, unless it's really well played by the defensive linemen and linebackers. And so the whole unit's got to be on a string in a lot of ways, working together. It's about gap integrity and your gap responsibility. And if you lose that gap responsibility, it's not a defense with extra bodies down by the line of scrimmage so that you've got somebody who can come in and then cover that up. That's not the way that works then. And it's going to go for a big gain. And I'm going to show you some run plays today which will kind of show you that, where it's like, look, everybody's really got to do their job. Back to that Belichick, do your job, meaning do your gap integrity job. You got this gap, you got to get this, and make sure you're handling both of them. And sometimes the Seahawks will play what's called a gap and a half technique on the defensive line. And historically speaking, you'd have one gapping or two gapping you tend to ask a defensive lineman to do. One gapping, get upfield, go attack a shoulder of a lineman and get upfield, go attack. Two gapping, hold your ground and sort of just kind of read the play. Have each control, be able to get to each gap. You're not trying to move to one or the other. You're basically controlling your lineman, not being moved, and then go find the ball carrier, go make the tackle. Gap and a half, man, that's a tough one. And talking with NFL players, I've asked them about it a little bit here and there, and they say, man, that's one that takes a little bit of touch to pull it off right. Because you're one gapping at first, but you always have to have the backup plan to get back to the other gap if you notice that you've chosen wrong, if you've guessed wrong. I'm shooting up this. Oh no, it's going over this other shoulder. I've got to reroute back around, or I've got to be quick and get ahead of the play and come back around, kind of do a whole circle move around to get back to that other gap. Rather than attack it this way, I got to come up around my lineman and curl around him and then get back into the play that way. It's really tough. It ain't easy. But this is where the importance is going to lie. This team's going to generate pressure. This team's going to cover well in the back end. This team's going to confuse offenses with the structure of what they run from the front to the back and how much they disguise pre to post snap. But stopping the run is where this will begin and where this will end, I think, for this defense, especially getting to that top end form we hope they can get to. Top 5, maybe even higher. I think if you can be great at stopping the run, you've got a lot of potentiality of getting to that spot. When you look at the NFL, there's a part of this also that has to do with something separate of Mike Macdonald's defense, and that is the running game coming back into the forefront here in the NFL over the last couple of years. Well, defending the run was mightily important when you're talking about 1985. Defending the run was mightily important when you're talking about 1995 or even 2005. But we've seen here in recent years into like the late teens area of things, early teens to late teens, where passing became center stage. And you just felt like this offenses in general were just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. And what's happened here is that about 2020, and with the let Russ cook era and the bombs away and trying to find an adjustment for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at that time and their ability to strike down the field, defenses really leaned into the Vic Fangio cover two shell defense. We're going to leave those two safeties on the back end. We're not bringing a safety down in the box like a strong safety in order to get more guys covered up, and we're going to cover up deep. We're going to force you to be patient. We're going to force you to take the check down, to take the short route, to just matriculate your way up the field very slowly rather than fast. And it had worked really well at stopping down the pass, and it has continued to work as we've seen the passing numbers kind of stagnate. A lot of what's at the heart of this is now starting to kind of confuse offenses in these coverages you're running, where you show something pre-snap and then you're something else post-snap. And it gets very hard for offenses to have to figure that out on the fly, especially if you're marrying it with your fronts and you're doing a lot of wide variety of things. So we've seen over this last couple recent year period here where the rushing has started to run and go forward a little bit more and more and more. The passing has gone down just a little bit. The scoring has gone down just a little bit. This shrinks the possessions in a football game. This makes the possessions you do have all that much more important now because you don't get extras. There's no second helpings on this. There's no second breakfasts, as the Hobbit would say on this one. As you can see with the rushing averages, to give you guys an indicator about what I'm talking about with this, you can see in 2019, the rush average by NFL team that year went down to 112 yards, or about 113 yards a game approximately. And we can see that it was starting then to kind of fluctuate in little places, but you can see there's a little bit of an uptick. Now, I know that from general fans' perspective, they say, okay, well, it was 112.9 in 2019, and now it's up to 119.8 last year. But that's actually a pretty significant difference. Yes, it's only 10 yards, but it's a pretty big jump, especially understanding that the trend prior to this, 16, 17, 18, 19, was the devaluation a bit of the run game and more of the passing game reaching into center stage. As well, the more you're going to get in running the ball, the more that starts to roll forward. You're not going to be seeing a substantial an impact to me on the total yards or the total number of attempts, because when you look at the total number of attempts, there's a little bit of change there. For instance, this 2019 season, you had 418 attempts on average for NFL teams, offensive-wise. So every team on average, about 418 attempts rushing the ball for the entirety of the season. Last year, 2024, that year you ran for 119.8 yards on average per team, 459 attempts. So 460 attempts compared to 418 attempts in 2019 to show you that the number of attempts are coming forward. The run game's becoming more of an onus now. It's becoming more important now as this goes forward. And so this trend's going to continue along with the fact that you're seeing the passing go down, passing average go down. So 2019, we're up at 235 yards a game. 2020, the let Russ cook era, 240 yards a game up there. And then we've seen it kind of stagnant down, 228, 218, 217 this last year. So run game coming forward, going up. Rushing attempts coming up by about 40 attempts per team on average there, from just 5 years back on that side of it. And then we're seeing the passing yardage go down. So again, the games get shrunken up, the possessions get shrunken up. You're not getting as many yards, you're not scoring as many points. That which you do as far as run game and your effectiveness with it becomes that much more important because every snap starts to become just a little bit more than maybe even the prior, where you could have an extra couple plays. Maybe you get an extra possession because teams are throwing the ball. So when you get teams throwing the ball, you're getting clock stoppages. You're just going to get some extra possessions that way. If both teams are deciding they're going to run the ball, that's how you get a shrunken game, and you just don't get as many possessions. Football's kind of weird in that respect of things. When it comes to Mike Macdonald, like I was talking about, there is a little bit of that natural vulnerability that lies in his defense. And the vulnerability that lies is for the same reason that the Vic Fangio cover two shell defense has taken away the big passing attack in the NFL. Because, as I said at the top, every defense has to choose a vulnerability. So when Fangio says, I'm going to be a cover two shell guy here, I'm going to take away this deep stuff, I'm going to make teams have to really slow roll their way up the football field, he's chosen to make that weakness the lighter box. And in that lighter box with those lesser guys, with that stretched out kind of alignment you'll have on that defensive line, that's where your vulnerability goes to. And Mike Macdonald is very much the same way. He has essentially taken your Buddy Ryan concepts with the stack boxes and the stack fronts, removed some of the blitzing from it, put on the Vic Fangio layer for his coverages on the other side, added his own little flavor within there, and there you go. That's a Mike Macdonald defense. When he first got in with the Baltimore Ravens in 2022, he was actually able to get them really good as far as their rushing yank or their average rank. They were third in the NFL at stopping the run, so it was a very good opening year there for Mike Macdonald. And then we've got, this is by the rank, by the way, and this would be your yard per carry average. So I wanted to kind of use that. I didn't want to use rushing yards, and I'm going to give you the reason for that in regards to especially 2023 there, because in both of those cases with 22 and 23, there is some times there where you're getting to play from ahead quite a bit. And I think that this is where Mike Macdonald's defense is at its best, is when it can play from ahead, when it can take a little bit more of the risks, when it doesn't have to dial back the blitzes as much. And it also then at that point, if you're playing from ahead and that team has to play from behind, what do we know about teams that play from behind? They don't get the opportunity to run the ball as much because they're just going to end up burning clock, shrinking the game, and maybe not giving themselves an opportunity to get back into the game. So 26th in 2023 with his yard per carry rank. Last year as well, though, you were middle of the road overall in defending the run. Basically, and I'll show you a couple of metrics. You were kind of right in between 15 to 23-ish, depending on what metric you want to use. But they were 26th in yard per carry average allowed. And so that was the tale of the two seasons. That was a little bit of, hey, it's going to be a little bit rougher when we're looking at some of those games early on in the year, especially that Lions game, versus when we get a little bit later on in the year when you've got your linebackers in place and everything's flowing really nice and looking really good. So the vulnerability lies there in the alignment. The vulnerability lies there in a little bit of the statistical output, though it is a sample size here for Mike Macdonald recently. Let's take a look at a couple of things just in regards to some advanced statistical data on this one. And then let me show you a little bit of tape here to kind of give you guys the full understanding on this one. I've been really digging this site. This advanced statistics site here for the NFL is just so cool. And all of the stuff it shows you and gives you just some extra little cool things with it. And so I talked about the light box, which I wanted to have you guys take note of first. And so this is light box. This is percentage of times that you're going to run a light box in the NFL. And a light box is just going to naturally be a little bit more vulnerable because you don't have as many bodies down there to stop the run. And so you can see at the top of the list here, you've got the Eagles at a 68.5% light box rate. That's very high, very high. Cardinals in there as well with the light box. That tells you, hey, this is also the same thing about us going at the Cardinals and running the ball next year is we get that light box. Let's go back at that again. We were able to attack it a couple times last year in the run game. You want to see that definitely once again there. You have your Seattle Seahawks there at 10th, rocking about a 48.6%, right here, 48.6% light box rate. So top 10 defense and having a light box in this NFL. And that's a little bit of the part and parcel why it's actually kind of, a good thing in a lot of ways with this, because it isn't then a bit, when you look at them stopping the run, about a deficiency with having the personnel out there. It's just about, are you playing it right? And are you playing it true? Because you've got the guys that can get it done from, I think, a talent standpoint. But it is that question of, can you overcome at times not having as many bodies down there to get the job done as maybe some other teams would use. On the other side of it, you've got your stack box rate. So you're going to run light box, then that means you're probably not running a lot of stack box. And this does turn out to be the case. It's pretty much just the inverse here from what you see on the top side of the other one, where you have the Seahawks with the stack box at a rate of the 29th in the NFL. So only the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Bills ran a stack box less frequently than the Seattle Seahawks did in 2024. So we're not stacking the box. We're going to keep it light. That's how you're going to have to get this done. A couple of other things here. These are just kind of some fun. Your team stuff rate, kind of a new stat there with it, where you see the Bills and all of them up there at the height. You've got Seattle down here, 29th. It's not the best with a stuff rate on that side of it. 10-yard plus rushes of 10 yards or more allowed. Big rushes allowed. You've got your Seahawks right in there, kind of somewhat middle of the road, 22nd. I guess technically you'd want to have it flip it this way. So Ravens would be number 1, and then not 22nd, 11th. Sorry. So not as many 10 yards rushes allowed as like the Panthers, who allowed 83 10-yard runs or more, or the Browns allowed 70 10-yard runs or more. Your Seattle Seahawks only allowed 48. So not too bad there. That's where I say there's not a lot of this data that's going to tell you, EPA, for instance, that's going to say one way or the other about what they did last year. And I think some of this has to do with if I could parse this data a little bit by the weeks, I can go week 1, week 2, but I can't take a swath of weeks like I would like to do here to show you, okay, let me show you the first 8 weeks and let me show you the back 8 weeks. And I think that's where you'd see the substantial difference. And why you'd want to show that is because of the fact that that would be the indicator about where we're going, right? We're not rocking Dotson and Baker back at inside linebacker again next year. We're not going to be down Byron Murphy for 3 games at the start of the year like we were last year after the Dolphins game. So you're, at least hopefully not. So the stats are kind of bared out by those 2 halves, and that makes it a little bit harder to find concrete data one way or the other, especially when it's middle of the road like this. You got EPA rush, you're right there at 16th, right there in the middle of the round. Rushing yards over expected allowed. Still not quite sure exactly how they complicate this stat. You got the Ravens up there nicely with negative 207, and your Seahawks right there at 20th here on that side of it. So not great, not awful necessarily, but this is pretty much what you're getting down the line. And I mentioned the rushing yards per attempt. I kind of brought that one up a little bit earlier on that. So you've got your Seahawks right here, 23rd. I think it's at 24. So 23rd is what they really are there, 4.6, but they're tied there at 26 too, because there's a couple teams with 4.6. So Rams, Cardinals, Giants, Seahawks, all in at that rate. So you run the light box. You're kind of middle of the road last year. You this is also the one I want to show you guys. How do teams attack you? Where do they tend to run the ball? Where do they go after most on that? Well, when you look at this, you inside runs, A, B gap kind of runs. You see your Seahawks at 30. So kind of an interesting point of data here where inside runs, not very often. Sorry, let me get down to the bottom there. So you can see 32, you got the Cowboys, Tampa Bay at 31, and then 30. So this is your inside running percentage rate, meaning that the Seahawks were the team in the NFL that had the NFL teams run up the middle against them at the 3rd fewest rate in the entire NFL. But this then did, of course, mean that when we go to the outside the tackles percentage of runs, this is where this starts to go through the roof. Because we can see here, your Seahawks are top 5 at 55.7% of the runs going to the outside. So how are teams going to attack us? Outside. Pitch plays, outside zone runs. These are the runs that you're going to have to stop because this is how teams are going to attack you mainly. Still a decent amount of runs inside, but definitely we're one of the higher percentage teams on the outside to where teams weren't trusting as much that we could handle and control and contain the edges. Part of why I like to always say, too, with this kind of stat and seeing this, that when it starts with Mike Macdonald's defense in a lot of ways, it starts with those power edges. Those guys that can set the hard, strong edges and route the ball carrier back inside, because that's where you start to limit the runs. You lose that edge, that's where you allow the big runs to break out. Because that you're kind of, at times, not the safety valve, but you're somewhat of a last line of defense on that defensive line as that outside shoulder, and you can't lose it. Fortunately, I'm going to show you some snaps here as to a few of the Hawks at times last year that did lose it in those situations and that did allow this to be caused to go the direction it did at times and not being always really great at stopping the run. And unfortunately, one of the main guys that had an issue with this on those outside runs and that would keep coming up over and over again was a guy that I actually like a lot, and I don't want to see him, I'm kind of hard on him at times, and I'm not meaning to be too hard on him, but it's just an issue that he's got to overcome here a little bit. And that's going to be defending the edge and holding up on the edge and being strong against the edge. And the guy that I'm going to have you look at over these just 2 steps, and this is only because I always want to get this across, I see a lot of this on tape with him last year, and it's with Derek Hall. And Derek is a guy that has a lot of power, good length, strong guy, but the run game instincts with him at times are just really almost Darrell Taylor-like, quite frankly, where he's just not aware of what's going on or how teams are trying to attack him on a given play. So, light box. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage here for the Detroit Lions. Right? You've got 2 tight ends to the far side of the field here. He's aligned between those 2 tight ends. So he's got a hard job here to have to set a hard edge, especially with his right shoulder to the inside of that outside blocker. He's not in the greatest of positions here to make this. But this is where you're going to get a bit of the light box here. Yeah, even though you do have the extra safety or Witherspoon essentially down in there to give you one extra guy, you still only then have 7 guys here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 guys for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys at the front. So it's 7 on 7. But this is where you don't have the extra defender to clean things up if it goes wrong. And if you get to a read option situation with the quarterback, you don't have to deal with it here with Jared Goff, but then that's one extra guy you have to account for, and you don't have the extra guy to account for him. Makes it hard on defenses. It does. This is not an easy draw for defenses. But where Hall goes wrong here, comes off the blocks there, look to that left side of the screen. He does get, see, and he even gets pushed here because he could just take the wide path here with that push and just keep the outside shoulder here. But he decides to cut it in. See that? Cuts it in, and then he gives up his outside shoulder. You got to set hard edges in this defense in the run game first and foremost. You can't lose that outside edge. It'd be one thing if he got down blocked by the other guy truly, but that's not really what happens. The other guy comes in and pushes him out there. That should have just forced him right out. He knows, but he's trying to read it. He's trying to make a play. I can't blame him for that, but you lose your outside shoulder the second you do that. Right there, you're losing your outside shoulder. And this is why teams at times would attack Hall specifically in the run game, because they were aware of it. I'm not the only one that's seeing it. You can see on tape the teams are very well aware that you can go after him in this way. Same kind of thing here. You're going to have a pitch play. You're going to have it go out wide. You got Hall here to the left side of your screen. You've got to keep your outside shoulder. Keep your leverage. Instead, he decides to shoot the gap inside here. A little bit of a hold there by Jameson Winston. It's not egregious. But see how he shoots inside there? It's on this pitch play. And that just takes him completely out of the play. He's the outside shoulder guy. He's got to route this thing back inside. Maybe they're telling him to get up the field there, but that's really not what you're tending to do in this defense in the run game. It's more about controlling your gap. Making sure your gap integrity doesn't get taken apart. And if you lose your outside shoulder, you've kind of lost your gap integrity there. Some of this could happen last year too on the inside. This ain't as much Hall here, but doesn't do a great job on this one either, quite frankly. This is more just an inside run. But what I want you to take note of is that light box again here. Same formation, right? 4 down linemen. You have your 2 linebackers, Witherspoon down in there. But the Lions are countering this with 2 tight ends. So you're getting a little bit of a heavier front to your light box. So guys have got to be strong and hard and rough and be able to handle the abuse and the power and the double teams. Jaron takes on the double teams. He holds up pretty well here. So number 90, bam, double teams are good. You can see right where the hole's going there. Now, like I said, with Derek Hall here, this is where it can get tricky to necessarily put as much on Hall here with this. I think Witherspoon's your outside force defender here. He's the guy I think that's supposed to route this back in, and that I think technically speaking, McDonald would tell me that he'd like to see Hall get to that gap here because he doesn't have as much of the outside. He's not the outside force defender you see with 21. See how Witherspoon plays that outside leverage there? Like he's the protector. He's sort of the power edge there and how he's kind of playing that a little bit. So that would give Hall a little bit more of now an ability to maybe slide in there and go make that play. It's not an egregious bad on Hall here. It's just this is the difficulty in trying to run this scheme at times. So these light boxes, you start this out. I mean, look at that. Just look to the right side of the line. You got those 4. You got the 2 to the the 2 offensive linemen. You got your left guard. You got your left tackle, and you got your 2 tight ends. You got those 4 on that 3. So it just doesn't look good at the start, does it? It just looks like you're kind of already a little deficient. This is also where it comes down to the linebackers coming in and making the play. Because Dodson's probably the guy that you would mainly go to here and say, you messed this up. Run game instincts matter. And they're very hard to sometimes tell, but not here. Watch 0. Look, where is 0 stepping here? Where are you going? Completely steps himself out of the hole. You don't have the extra guy there to overcome this. The linebackers have to be smart. And this is where Seattle took a big step forward throughout last year and where I'm going to be very hopeful for this upcoming season. This is not Tyrese Knight. Knight's in the spot he's supposed to be. Dotson just moves where he's not supposed to go here. For some reason, he reads this into the A, and it's more kind of B gap run there. But then he's completely isolated himself, hasn't he? I mean, he's run himself right into the double team that starts on Jaron. He's just opened himself up so easily to be blocked then by the double team that peels off of him. The guy doesn't have to scrape to the second level. Just, oh, you're right here. I'll block you here. Not a good play by Dotson, and he was bad last year. I mean, I'm not trying to blame it all on those two linebackers, but man, they were a big part of the problem. Baker and Dotson both out here early in the season. This is, again, on this one where I won't go as much to the defensive line to me. This is your linebackers kind of mess this up. Not a big run, goes for about 5 or 6 yards. But I just look at Dotson on this play. Just take note of Dotson, and he doesn't read it real true. Kind of just targets himself up nicely by just kind of standing in place for the lineman to get down and second level him. And just gets easily blocked out of the play. Doesn't even get close to getting off of it. I'm showing you guys this because I'm going to show you the good side of this, of what it looks like when you actually get a linebacker who can get off a block and the difference that can make. But you just see how he just gets completely isolated on that block there. Baker does nothing. Look at Baker. I mean, what are you doing on this play, Baker? What are you doing? Got freaking Hankins laying out, doing all he can there. Gets through 2 guys and tries to jump the legs, but linebackers have got to get off blocks. And why I mentioned that this is so important, and where you get to actually see this with this, is now let's look at the difference of once we had our linebackers out on the field and watch the difference here. Same kind of light box I showed you with the Lions. 2 tight end looks, but the tight ends are on either side of the formation. You have your extra safety down there, but there's that number game, that 7-on-7 kind of situation that you're dealing with. So everybody's got to do their job. Guys got to set the hard edges. Your linebackers have got to get off the blocks and go make a play. Watch how this rolls now on this one in differentiation. You're right there. You stuff it right up. And this is Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones working in tandem here. On a string, your 2 linebackers. Look at how Jones bounces to the play, to the right spot. Instincts, get it there. Something Dotson wasn't doing. He's in there waiting, watching, unsure. Jones gets in there and he's going to go make the play. He's going to go find it. He's going to be stepping in the right direction. Knight the same way. They're moving to the right direction post-snap. Good job there by Roy Roberts and Harris, too, to set the edge and then come back and get in on the play. Everybody working together, everybody in on the tackle. This is what Mike wants to see. Not one guy just making the play, but we're all just kind of collapsing it and sliding it. Hankins takes on the double team nicely. Look at 97 there, takes on the double team. It can't get down there to Jones. I talked about why I don't like having Myron Murphy down there as a one tech. Why? Width, size, huge, big old behind that the lineman can't get around to get onto that block. So the left guard here wants to get down to Jones, but he can't get off the big-ass Hankins to get there. Can't get around him, just too big of a man. And Hankins is controlling the block. You need those big 330 guys down there to do this. They got to be a certain size and length and width to kind of be able to keep that lineman from being able to get down to your linebacker. But what a difference it looked like once you had Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight out on the field and how they played the run. And here against the Cardinals, Jones had a great game. Similar kind of fronts that you're getting here. 2 tight end looks again. Now to one side of the football field. Lighter box here. Jenkins is down there. Need to tackle. Jones reads it. And see how Jones slides right off that block with ease. No chance there. I believe that's Tip Ryman, too, who's a very good blocking tight end. But he slides right off of it. Leonard Williams, I mentioned the gap and a half. What does gap and a half technique look like? So just take a look at Leonard Williams there, 99. This is what a gap and a half technique looks like. Tack the shoulder first. Oh, got to come back to the other gap. Now, Leonard's such a freak, he can just throw his guy aside to get back to the gap. Hard to pin him away from that. He's as Chris Carson once said, that's a big-ass dude. Not a lot you can do with that. But that's basically gap and a half play. It's kind of it looks a little bit like two gapping at times when the guys are doing it right like this. It does look a little bit like two gapping. But it's just always, he's first getting up the field, the first kind of attack on that shoulder there, right? So first get into that guard's shoulder, into that gap, and then come back over here if the ball carrier is going to try to cut that around me. A lot of guys doing good things all at once. That's how you stop the run. It ain't one guy just being a monster. It's a lot of guys doing it. Packer game, give you one bad snap, one good snap here. Kind of isolate this in again. Hall to the left side. Mafa on the right side there, the line of scrimmage. Got your light box here. This is only going to be a one tight end look. So we don't have the extra tight end. You're not going to have the extra safety down there. This is going to be a light box though, isn't it? You can see not a lot of hawk bodies down there for a lot of white. A lot of white jersey. And this is as easy as a 7-yard play can suddenly open up in these situations. Byron Murphy is your nose tackle. He's your one technique. He's taking on the double team. He kind of angles himself a little bit out of the play just slightly with a couple of lateral steps to his left. You're having a double team as well. It's kind of a two duo blocks here on the interior defensive tackles. They get isolated. There's your hole right there. Linebackers don't get there on time. You can see with Knight and with Jones, they kind of step in the right direction, but especially Jones here doesn't get there with enough urgency to kind of recognize it. Some of it is that Jones has got to play this for a potential read option look with the quarterback. But that's just how easy a 7-yard play can happen all of a sudden, and it's not really a guy being driven off the line. It's just that your light box gets exposed. 2 double team blocks at the point of attack. It's tricky. It's not easy in this defense for these guys. It really isn't. But it is going to be the key this upcoming season. And it wasn't all bad with that Packers game. There was some good stuff here. The Jones effect coming into play here, where he just saves the day on this play. This was about the time of the game this thing was about to go wrong. And he was able to come in, go make the play. Dual blocks at the point of attack, gets off the block, go make the tackle, cause the fumble. First read it inside. When Jacobs bounce it out, move right there with him. Linebacker play is vitally important to this defense. This defense produced a Ray Lewis at one point or another. Because when guys are doing their job up front, these linebackers can run free and make plays and look like stars. It's a great play by Jones. Closes the first hole, gets off the block, make the tackle, cause the fumble. Jones was really a godsend last year. He really was. More here from him. 2 tight end look here from the Niners. They've got a condensed split here with their wide receiver. I think that's Juwan Jennings there. Another condensed split with the other wide receiver to the far side. So this is a lot of guys tight in there for the Niners. 4 bodies down there. You've got Witherspoon up there as your slot. But everything is real tight on this play. Jones and Knight really do a good job here of just flowing right to the play. Get off the blocks. And look at Knight and Jones both defeat their blocks here easily. Easily defeat their blocks. Hankins does a pretty nice job here too of causing a lot of chaos down there in the line of scrimmage. But your linebackers have got to get off the blocks in this defense. They're going to have guys on them in the second level. And you can see Trent Jones just can't even get his hands. He had a whale of a problem getting on Jones in this game. I mean, they asked him a couple times, Trent Williams, to get to Jones. And he's been able in the past to land those blocks. He really struggled in this game. I don't know if it was health or what was going on with Williams, but Jones kind of gave it to him in this game in a lot of ways. So the difference between failing and success is a very small margin in this defense. One little blown play, one little blown gap integrity, and you're done. Right here, watch Baker. Reads the play right, actually gets in there and takes on the block well in the hole, but just gets himself blocked out of the play. Leonard Williams gets slid just slightly inside with the double team. Just slightly inside with the double team, and this opens it up for a big play. Doesn't take much for it to go wrong when you got the light box. Very easy for it to go off the rails. So next year, this is going to be the key for the Seahawks. Linebackers keeping up their high level of play, maybe some improvement, offsetting the hard edges. I think why you brought in a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence this offseason was to protect some of the stuff I showed you there with Hall. We're going to be doing a show on Hall here eventually this offseason at some point. And Hall's a good player. He's got a lot that he does bring to bear to the game, but he was attacked and he was picked on at times when he was out there on the edge. And he wasn't the only other guy. There's other guys too. Roy Robertson-Harris wasn't always as good as he could be out there. Travis Gibson was gone after at times too in there. But Lawrence does give you that ability to set more of that hard edge out there in the run game on early downs. And maybe that's going to free up a Derek Hall for not having to take on as much of that responsibility and just letting him loose as a pass rusher. I certainly would love to see that. And I think you're putting him in the best place to succeed, because recent history has just kind of taught me that if a guy's going to struggle so kind of mightily at times in defending the run, that's not really always, as a defensive lineman, really going to come much forward in their career. I think they get better as a pass rusher, but how you defend the run is kind of how you defend the run. You either kind of got it or you don't. And instinctually, I just don't know if it's really going to come far forward with Hall. I'll say he's got the physical goods to do it. Just not sure about whether or not the awareness, in-play awareness, recognizing what's going on with the ball carrier, choosing the right gap to shoot at the right time. All these things kind of combine together a little bit there to determine it. But if the Seahawks can stop the run, and why I've said that this is so important is, yeah, it's because Mike Macdonald has a slight vulnerability in his defense in stopping the run. Yeah, it's as well because of the fact that this is the recent NFL trend. This is where the game is going right now. It is going to be cylindrical and rotational, and you're going to maybe see 5 years from now passing coming back into vogue, and running game maybe becomes even more devalued back into that point again. It could happen, but for right now, for this upcoming season, this is where this is going to be heading, and where you're going to get more of the two tight end looks, and more two tight end looks born out of seeing if you're going to be able to drive defenses into nickel looks, into where you're going to have a slot corner out there on the field, and you've got a tight end blocking a 5'9" slot cornerback, and then you're able to create some games up front there and double teams and dual blocks to be able to free your running game up. So it also is going to come forward there, and this is why that is so important in addition to that, because of the trend and where this is going from an NFL standpoint wise. But the third reason has to do with being able to unleash Mike Macdonald's defense in full. And what I mean by that is that this defense becomes impossible, absolutely impossible, when you start getting teams into consistent 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9s. When you can get them into 3rd and longs, and Mike can now start to run more of the simulated pressures in the stack boxes, and then he can really truly start to go crazy with the blitzes too. Because I think he's a guy that if it's a game where he's behind in the game or it's a very close game, I think he's very hesitant in those kind of situations to run as much of the blitzes or the stack boxes. But you get him a little bit of the lead, you get him with an ability to stop the run on those early downs. And if you're stopping the run on early downs, you're not allowing the 4 and the 5 and the 6 yard carries, and you're keeping those offenses out of the 3rd and shorts, that's when the stack boxes come out. And watching the tape with Mike last year, when there's those 3rd and 3s and those 3rd and 4s, he's going to kind of play it straight up at those points. He's not going to take the risks. Really, because when you start to stack boxes there on 3rd and 3s and 3rd and 4s, you're going to take like double A gap mug pressure with 2 inside linebackers down over the A gap, and you have your 4 down linemen. Offenses can now just quickly adjust, only needing those 3 or 4 yards on 3rd down to just throw a little pop pass to the flat for the running back. And those inside linebackers sometimes can't get out there to that running back in time. I mean, they get out to him maybe to tackle him, but not after he's gotten 6-7 yards and a 1st down on the play. So you have to keep him into the 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11 kind of situations to bring out the flavor, to bring out Mike's, mad scientist kind of looks that he can drop out there, stack boxes and changing the coverages post-snap. So that's the third reason why it's so vital that the Seahawks actually are good at stopping the run this year, that they're improved at stopping the run this year, that they don't make that the easy peasy way that offenses can go after them. Because it's going to be a long day at the office if you don't, number one, but then number two, you're not able to unleash this defense in full in all the ways that you'd want to. Good news is the Seahawks have structured this up well. The question marks that you had at the inside linebacker position as you were flipping out 2 of your starters for two new starters is gone. You don't have to worry as much about that. You're returning all of your starters across the board. You've added on top of that with a couple of extra players who are going to be able to help that out. So I'm going to believe that this defense rush against the rush is going to be improved this year from where they were last year, that you're not going to have as much fluctuation from early in the season to late in the season. I think having a little bit of an easier schedule this year is going to help it in addition to that. But if you can stop the run, you can improve, if you can get a little bit above that middle of the road place of things, if you can take your yard per carry average from the 26th rate it was at this year to more of like the 13th or 12th rate, I think that this is going to allow that defense to be dominant then. You don't have to be dominant in stopping the run. You don't. You just got to be functional, viable, good, decent at it. And if you can do that, the other parts of your defense are going to more than carry the day. We know this defense is going to be able to generate pressure. You know you've got the dogs up front all across the board to be able to get after the quarterback. You got the secondary that can confuse you and has got the bodies back there to cover things up. So all that can fit together really well. That part's going to come no matter what. I have no doubt about that. But how you defend the run, that's going to be really the part that I'm going to pay attention to throughout the early part of this year, especially because if that comes forward, the chance for dominance from this Seahawks defense really raises. That thinking of, hey, we think they can be top 10 to, hey, this can be a top 5 defense, if not better, if this thing can lock into place. It is at the heart of things for me when it comes to this defense. We'll just have to see if this upcoming year it locks in. You guys let me know, though. Am I off on this one? Do you have a different part of this team defensively wise that you think is more of an important part? Like, for instance, maybe you look at the corners and say, man, it's more important to getting another corner in here, and how they play is going to really be what drives this. Maybe it's getting Byron Murphy out of the nose tackle role. But for my money, stopping the run is where it begins with this defense, and how they do against that is going to be as much a determination of their success, not because it's the end-all be-all, but because I have so much faith in the other parts of this defense and that they're going to be fine and viable and they're going to get the job done in these other areas. This is the one question mark with it. But you guys let me know on your side of it. I thank you guys for watching today and rolling with me. I know we swung a little bit of a curveball at you guys today because I was going to do the Charles Cross video, but we just ended up doing this one instead because I wanted to bop in and didn't have quite the tape ready on the Cross stuff. I've got a little bit more work to do on that tonight to get that ready for you guys. Marvin, Little Deer, welcome to the Hawks Nest as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler. Marvin, I really appreciate you for doing that. We're going to be doing a call-in show for members of the channel, Marvin. So be on the lookout under your community post. That's where I post up the membership benefits out there. So please do take a look at that, as I will be posting over there to Hawks Nest Pro Bowlers call-in show we'll be doing on Sunday. Just kind of open discussion, whatever you guys want to kind of talk about, we can kind of discuss. So looking forward to that. We'll be doing that at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Sunday. But thank you, Marvin, for jumping up on that. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. 1 second here. He says, what do you mean, haven't you heard? Dotson's a top 10 linebacker. That's right. I think, what was it, Phoebe's talking about PFF's released out the top 10 inside linebackers in the sport. I think Dotson was in like 10 or something. And, I guess he went to Miami and he was like, I guess somewhat functional for them. I don't know. The tape was pretty bad with him here. I mean, it was, as you saw, that's just a couple of cut-ups, guys, but I could show you a nightmare on Dodson Street slew of cut-ups of him last year, of just at times having no instincts and utterly refusing to get off blocks. It would be wild to watch just his inability to completely not be able to disengage himself from a guy climbing to the second level. And as you saw at that Patriot one, where he's just kind of standing there, it's like, at least kind of juke the guy a little bit, or side to side him a little bit, or stick your arms up. Don't just sit there and bounce on your toes and then just take the block head up front, which is what he did on that play. And he did that on a couple of plays last year, and both him and Baker would do it. And that's, really where the run game was going to hell, is that you've got to have guys that can get off blocks here. You just do. That's going to be the nature of the beast if you're running a light box. If you have a heavier box, maybe you're going to be able to run a little bit more free, and you're not going to have to worry about that as much, but probably not going to be the case here. Tasha says, watching Jones and Knight work in tandem last season was like watching a beautiful dance. The way they worked together was so pleasing to the eye. I'd watch Curious after the games just for them. They were a revelation, Tasha, to your point, and a night and day difference from what you had there. No pun intended, from what you had there early on in the season. Just no doubt about that. It really does stand out, and you can really feel between those two, and watching the two tapes of those two linebackers versus the other two and how they played, of what a difference good linebackers make in this defense, in the run game especially. Yeah, Hankins is a large boy, Stoney. He's a big one. That's what we saw, immense improvement. We got Ernest and started Tyrese at linebacker. Yes, we did. And those guys got great connection. I tell you, for two guys that didn't get to have a training camp working side by side, it's kind of wild to see so many snaps of them last year where there is that string between them, where they're moving post snap into the same direction. They're not getting too closely together to where, they both end up in kind of the same gap. You can feel them keeping that gap integrity in their movement, keeping the spacing right in their movement, and both ready to be in on the play. And so many different plays where they both do all of that on a string, stepping in the right direction, keeping your spacing, then both getting off a block, then getting in and making the play. All of it together in one play. And whereas a lot of times you're watching, especially early on in the year, at times maybe Dotson will get off, but Baker's certainly not. And Baker's not, or Baker maybe gets off, but he's on the backside of the play, and Dotson can't. He's at the front side of the play. It'd be one or the other. But these guys play after play after play, stepping in the right direction, getting off the block, working together in that tandem way. They're going to be a really, really good duo this year. Absolutely awesome duo this year. Addicted Brandon, do the number of Hall's mistakes maybe means he doesn't take coaching well? Thinking Dirty and McDonald would have been on this one, and Hall, as you said, Darrell Taylor 2.0. I think Hall's, I think I wouldn't go and say he's as bad as Darrell Taylor totally as a run defender, because he certainly has more strength, length, an ability to just root down and do some of that that is better than Taylor. So I mean, Taylor was just atrocious. But the big issue and the comparison I'd put to Darrell Taylor on this is just the run game instincts and in-play awareness. Pre-snap instincts of where the run play is going, not the best. He falsely steps in the wrong direction, and he'll go too aggressive in that wrong direction and then open up the back door for him to be taken advantage of by doing that. The awareness of where the player's moving around him, it's kind of a spatial awareness thing where you can be on a block and the ball carrier is coming right past your outside shoulder. And can you get that hook out there at least to kind of hold him up? Can you impact the play a little bit, or do you just get sectioned out of the play completely and you just never, or he's right there and you just don't know, you're not aware of the fact he's coming past you. You're just so engaged in your block. You're so into that you're like, oh, he's right there. And that's also some of what you get with him. So it's very specified there. And I don't know, to be honest with you, Addicted, if run game instincts and in-play awareness are things that do come forward in that way. I mean, I would think they would. I would think that coaching could improve that. But I also don't know if I have a lot of examples of that occurring. And that's always what I'm going to look for on that is, do I have a track record that goes back of a player who might have come in and he's a deficiency in the run game and you have to work around him, and then that grows with time, and then you get to a place where some things can kind of stabilize a bit there. I can't think of too many that it was that way. Much like with Taylor, we saw with him, it's like it didn't really ever improve. What he was walking in the door as a run defender was what he was as a run defender when he walked out the door and left. And I think that that's probably going to be much of the same case there with Hall. The thing that helps him out is that he is a little bit of a bigger edge, and he does have some good size, and he does have some good power. Those things should help him. But the in-play awareness and stuff is just sometimes really rough with him on tape to watch. You're like, dude, that lion snap where he cuts it inside and he's got to be the power edge guy. You don't get to take that step inside. You should. What drove you to think that was the okay move to make there? You just open that whole play up. Marvin Little Deer, total nightmare on Dodson Street. He is. He's got the finger knives and everything. He's like, oh, I'm going to put your running defense in hell. Not the kind of nightmare we want. We thought we were getting a nightmare in Dodson, but we thought he was going to be a nightmare Marvin for the opposition, not for us. Nobody seems to want a blind Carpenter. Addicted, maybe Nwosu and Mafe start, and Hall's just a NASCAR package to go get the sack on pass plays. Yeah, I think that the Hawks are this will be the interesting thing to watch if I'm kind of proven true on this or not. Because if my instincts on this are right, is that you're going to see Lawrence, Nwosu, Mafe out there on early rundowns to take that load off of Hall. And like you say, then you just turn him into more of a pass rusher with some very limited snaps as a run defender. That would be how I would guess this would kind of go. Yeah, I would say that's what if I was Mike McDonald in his shoes, that's what I would be doing. But maybe the team feels like he can come forward here. And if we see him with some snaps on early rundowns, I think that would be an indicator that the team's going, no, it's going to come forward with him. Give it some time. And maybe it will. It's just kind of what I've seen so far from him. But Nwosu is pretty good at stopping the run as well. All three of those guys are better run defenders than Hall is. And pretty significantly, all three of them are better. Not just by like a little bit, but by like a good amount, I would say. Phoebe, did you watch the Byron Murphy interview about him playing more three tech this season? No, I didn't. I didn't see the interview, but I did hear that they were playing him out on the practice field more there at that spot. So that's good to hear. I think that's one of the keys to getting the best out of this defense this year is certainly playing the players that they're going to be into the best positions to get the best effect on your defense, not to fill in a hole that you didn't get filled by other guys this offseason. So you just have to have him kind of do the dirty work because you got no other answers there to get it done. So that's good to hear. I hope it's the case. It's where he'll be best. I think he can be a potentially dominant 3-tech player in the sport, but he's got to play it to get that out of him. He's got to get those single block opportunities to show out what he can do. But he's a great player. Addicted Brandon agreed. 2.0 Taylor with some upgrades. There you go. He's got the wheels, you know. They would put a little bit of chrome on him, but still some run game issues there. And his instincts are being used. It seems like he should always set the edge. Video of Mafia would be cool. I think he is more of a run and pass quality guy. Yeah, we're going to do a Mafia show for sure. Addicted. That's another one that's on the mark here for this month that we'll be going over Mafia, and it'd be really a show about him. What does he need to sort of do here to take that sort of final step to become kind of the final form of the player that he has teased since coming out of college? And that's a good way of putting it. He's kind of a Darrell Taylor with some minor upgrades around the edges on him. I would think that you could kind of, like you say, just kind of get him into a rudimentary place where you're like, okay, look, just set the hard edge. That's all we're going to have you do here. Don't worry about trying to read the play and get on it. Just nobody gets outside your outside shoulder. You know, and that maybe simplifying it down for him could help out a little bit there too. Stephen David Plummer says, I hope we go 0-17 and get the number 1 overall pick, or I hope we win the Super Bowl. I like it, Stephen. Feast or famine, man. If you ain't going to win it all, you might as well get the number 1 overall pick. I'm with it, brother. Jordan, it's good to see you in the house, brother. And thank you, man, for the big $10 donation. I really do appreciate you for that. I think it's more of playing reckless and less of instinct. He has some plays where he defends the edge well and others where he just looks to make the big play. I think that's a fair assessment of it, Jordan. I do. And I think you're talking a little bit inherently about what does give me a little bit more hope for him, where with Darrell Taylor, I would have told you, and you guys can attest to me, I told you this throughout the time of Darrell playing here, there is no hope for Darrell in the run game. He might be able to give you something as a pass rusher, but he has nothing, zero to offer as a run defender. I don't want to, even though there is some slight comparisons to make between these two guys, I don't want to put that evil, I don't want to put that same evil on Derek Hall. He's not that, he's a better player than Darrell Taylor. He's a significantly better player than Darrell Taylor. And that power that is there gives him an ability to have something he can work off of to improve in his game as that run defender. It could be the instincts part of it. And that whole thing that I talked about with the gap and a half structure of how you'll often ask these defensive linemen to play, it's not a fun style of technique to play. If I one gap, I got to get up the field. Got to get up the field like hell on wheels. I don't have to think about anything else. Just get up the field. If I two gap, I root down. I just root down. That's all I got to do. I don't got to push up the field. I don't got to throw the guy off and go make the tackle. Not initially, at least. I just got to control my gap, read the run play, and make sure if the run play goes on either side of my gap that I'm there to go make the play. Gap and a half. Well, you want me to kind of shoot the gap like I would one gapping, but then I've got to find a pathway back there to get to the other gap if all goes to hell. And that is difficult, and that is a touch thing, and that is a thing that would probably take a lot of reps, Jordan, to kind of learn and get right and know how hard you can go up in that initial gap versus knowing that you need to still leave yourself some room to get back to the other gap if you have to there. And it's probably very easy to overshoot the gap too far to where you can't come back to the half gap side of that technique. Like, well, you did the one gap part of it, but you didn't get back to the half gap part of it. And that's kind of the important part about running the gap and a half technique. So very well could be the case there with him, Jordan. There definitely is more optimism for me with Hall on that this can improve somewhat, at least a little bit slightly because of the power, because of the length. He played the run pretty well in college too. So it wasn't like, I think some of the run game issues we've seen with him as a pro weren't as much a bad part of his game on tape out at Auburn. But that'd be more to your point on that, you know? So it very well could be a part of it. We shall see this upcoming year with him, I think, on that. I do think the team's going to try a little bit to protect him on some of those snaps, but we'll see if it comes forward. Interesting thing to maybe monitor with him. Thank you, though, man. I appreciate the $10 dono. Judas says Nwosu needs to step up, and if DeMarcus Lawrence can find some magic, I think they will. I think Nwosu really got remember with Judah, he got that dirty shot by Wyatt Teller in preseason, and he himself said he was never completely 100% right from that injury after he sustained it. So he'll come back 100% healthy this year. I'm guessing he's going to be rocking and ready to roll. And Nwosu's kind of an underrated player in this team. I know he's been injured a lot the past couple of years, and so we haven't seen as much of what he could bring to bear, but there was a reason we rewarded this guy with a contract extension after signing him as a free agent. He's a good all-around player. He's a hell of a player, and especially in the rotational basis where you're not going to have to play him too many snaps, I think he's going to come in and have a good impact this year. As long as he can stay healthy, as Stoney says. Seth says, Emawari play nickel will help set the edge as well. It's like having 3 linebackers with him on the field. 100%. Yeah, you're flipping out a guy like Rayshawn Jenkins and bringing this guy down in the box now. That gives you a much bigger body down there to handle blocks and get off blocks and be able to make the tackle too, where you're not an undersized guy on a bigger back that might get run over at times within that. So Emawari should help with this. In addition to this, a couple little just extra supporting parts helping. You got the linebackers coming back. These are 2 inside linebackers. That was the biggest problem in your run defense to start the year. You've got maybe a little bit more of an understanding of solidity and how you're going to use your nose tackles. Maybe it's Jaron Reed-Hankins, and now Murphy gets to go to more of a 3-tech. You're going to bring in DeMarcus Lawrence in, who's going to be able to be more of a power edge guy and how he sets that stuff up and gets that to roll. And then you have an Emawari who can come in, and now you can flip out. So often you like to use a little bit of Rayshawn Jenkins as that extra safety down the box, especially when teams went to the 2 tight end looks. Now Emawari becomes that guy, and now you get even a little bit more improvement there. You don't make any major moves, but you just put some good improvements across the board. You return all the starters across the board, and maybe the unit with it can just be better because of that. I think it's very feasible. Seth says sad, but also needs to show he can stay healthy. Sometimes the best ability is availability. It is. It is. It is hard to kind of knock him for last year where you get dirty shotted like that, and that's as bad a dirty shot as I saw all of last year. That it's hard to be hard on him with that, where it's like if a guy was running down the field and somebody just cleaned a guy's clock, blindsided the hell out of him and, caused a neck fracture. It's like, well, you have a hard time going, that guy's got to be the hell. It's like, dude, it was a dirty shot. There's a reason those plays by Wyatt Teller have been legislated out of the game. And, hopefully he can be healthy. Good news, he's got a lot on the line. He's probably working his butt off this offseason to be in the best shape of his entire career, and that he knows that, there's a sense of urgency here because you have been injured the past couple of years. I think we'll get his best play. I will. And what's good is that you have that rotation, so you're going to be able to keep him fresh and rolling through. And that means he can all these edge guys can be playing 100 miles an hour every time they're out there. They can lay it all in the field. They don't have to leave a little reserve in the tank for the fourth quarter. Because you've had some Seahawks teams in recent years where they've been relying on sort of just 2 guys to kind of carry the load with your pass rush. And so they had to play too many snaps then because of that. I'd like to avoid it if we could with that. Phoebe says, do you have a JSN show lined up? I do indeed. Yeah, we're going to be doing, I think, the JSN show. Will it be next week we're doing that? I want to say maybe next week we're going to be doing that. Yeah. So, next week, we're going to be we'll be doing a show about whether or not the Seahawks should take a big swing, Abraham Lucas's understated impact, the ascent of JSN, looking about the Red Mamba, talking a little bit about Kobe Bryant next week. So yeah, we're going to be diving in a little bit of that next week for sure, man. Got to talk a little about JSN, what he did last season and where he's going. Donnie, it's good to see you in the house, brother. Hope you're doing well. Thomas Cox, thanks for the $5 don't know, and as well for being a member of the channel. I really do appreciate that, man. And same thing with you too there, Jordan. Thank you guys for being as well members. He says, what's your opinion of McDonald and that he said to Salk and Brock about Darnold? The more Darnold struggles, the more people will want Milroe or Locke. Yeah, I don't think it's really a question that Salk had to ask. I don't. I really don't. And I'm glad that McDonald's response back to him was what it was, because I think that's what it should be. You guys notice with me, I don't do OTA reactions. If you guys notice that, I'm not a big OTA reaction video guy. And the reason is because it's kind of BS. You could take like Byron Murphy playing 3-tech. There's news. That's noteworthy. That's something to talk about. But you'll get Jalen Milroe throwing on air a 10-yard out route to Jake Bobo, and people will be effusively praising it right and left all over the place. And they're not in pads like Macdonald said. It's the beginning of the offseason program. This is the wrong time to be making any kind of assessments about any players. So the fact that you get people that are already chomping at that bit going, well, Drew made some throws and you do have Milroe. I mean, are we really sure about Sam? I mean, he threw a couple of picks into it's really ridiculous. And it is really like trying to generate news kind of point of discussion, in my opinion of it. And so this is why I avoid having those kind of discussions about that stuff, because I really don't think there's a lot of value in it. I think it's hyper reactive. I think it's overreactive by people's takes on this kind of stuff when it's occurring. And the final point on it is like what Mike said at the end of it, which is that you want these guys out there being worried about making mistakes because one of you guys is going to write a note about how he looks this or he looks that, and then he's going to have to deal with the hell of that online versus letting it rip, letting it go, that he's trying out things. I mean, practice, that's where you want to try out stuff, right? That's where you want to be working on techniques and things you want to bring to the field and growing your game. Or do you want him playing scared on the practice field because he could lose his job at any minute? I think that's where, again, we come back to the silliness of being people taking those kind of, conclusions off of that one day and then just sort of wanting to run with it. But you do touch on something that's going to be a point that we're going to have to run through over and over again. And we dealt with this with Geno, didn't we, Thomas? With all the people that were like, Drew Lock. We can't, Geno's not going to be it. We got to go Drew Lock. And you're going, come on, let's hold on here on this. I know you're not big on Darnold. I know Darnold's not going to sell a lot of people. I know Darnold's not selling Vegas, so I understand that he's a guy that doesn't get people hyped through the moon, but you got to give it a chance. You got to give it a true chance. Otherwise, these folks will show their colors as far as what you really want is somebody else in there. You just don't want Darnold. And it doesn't matter whether he plays good or bad. You're just kind of not on board with him. You just like somebody else to be in there. So I loved the soundbite by Macdonald. He's getting more comfortable in dealing with the media. And I'm glad that he kind of gave it to him in the way he did on it. I agree with everything that he said on it. And I think that these OTA reactions that you see, I get that they have to be a part of the process, but I think that they're really silly. I think they're really, really silly. And that's why I won't do those videos. Not going to do it. Judah says, I'm thinking we need just one more calculated defensive-oriented draft and a big-time free agent blue chipper to take us over the top, in addition to the quarterback being an efficient game manager. I love it, Judah. I love it, man. I would agree with you 100% on that. Part of what we're going to be doing the show on Monday and discussing a little bit about taking a big swing. I mean, you're talking about it being a calculated free agent risk. Also possibly could be them looking to go make a trade of a guy who becomes available this offseason that we wouldn't have thought becomes available. And when it comes to the Sheldon Richardson trade or the Jadeveon Clowney trade or the Jamal Adams trade, when we were in early June, nobody really thought that those trades were possible for your Seattle Seahawks to go get those guys. And you might be right on it. It might be where we don't get anybody this year and you wait until more free agency next year, and then that's the time when you click that into place. But there is the possibility that a guy comes available now and you go and you make that jump as well. I think whether it's now or whether it's in the draft, we are in complete agreement that you are going to need to probably do that kind of move eventually here. That guy that can be a bit of a difference maker over the top kind of guy, whether it's in pass rushing edge or an outside lockdown cornerback. Just getting that one extra kind of guy in there to kind of top it off would be great. Yeah, I agree. An efficient game manager, that's how it all works together. You play great defense, top 5 type defense, top 5 type special teams, run the ball like hell, have an efficient game manager there at the quarterback position that can roll it, put it all together. We did it 10 years ago. We went to a Super Bowl. We went to back-to-back Super Bowls on this approach. Why can't it work like it once worked just 10 years ago so well? Catalyst says, for some reason, social media outlets have posted on Mike's reaction to Saul's question. People are really scraping for something to cover in the dead of the offseason. Yeah, it's hard for a lot. This is the time of year where people are really looking for the content stuff to talk about, which I can kind of get to. I understand that. But we don't want to create news out of nothing, and man, it's like opening day of real OTAs. You don't want to overstate that too much. And it's also on it too that people don't talk about. It's like, okay, so he threw a couple of interceptions during the day. He also made some really good throws in addition to that, as Macdonald also talked about. So it wasn't just all bad to that side of it. But yeah, people have run with it a little bit there, Catalyst. You're right. Thomas, thanks for the $5 donation. I'm more of a training camp guy. It's more telling when it comes on who is successful and who is not. Yeah, that's one where I am agree with you there. That's where I will certainly say when we get to training camp, when the pads start to come on, there's a lot more reason at that point to have some takeaways and have some things that are, hey, this is something that that we're seeing and that we know is true and that we can pull away from. Let me give you a representation of this, Thomas. When I was in training camp last year and I'm watching our punt returners try to return the punts and all of them are fumbling the ball, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, is our punt return game in trouble this year? And our punt return game was in trouble that year. When I watch Sam Darnold on the practice field throw the ball everywhere but to his actual guys and looks completely confused and in over his head and looks like a rookie who's just in his first training camp, I think that's where you can start to have those takeaways that's going to carry forward into the year. But that's definitely a lot different from where you're in the OTAs where there is no padded practice, where you're just installing your playbooks and getting all that into place a little bit, especially with a new offensive system here in Kubiak. But I'd agree with you. Yeah, when it comes to training camp, you can actually go through there and I think have some takeaways and pull away there where that's valid to me. But OTAs, when you're just onboarding stuff, when you have rookies that are just figuring out how to be pros, new playbooks, new quarterback, that's where you got to give it some time to let it all kind of settle out. Dig to Brandon, McDonald saying Darnold won't be worried about somebody writing a note. Best John Schneider move in recent years, hiring Coach Mike. I agree. Home run hire, man. Home run hire. They did their legwork. They did an exhaustive process, and they got the right coach here. They really did. Catalyst, I love how Mike isn't afraid to tell him how it is or shut down certain comments, questions to protect his players. I don't either. I do too, as well, Catalyst. As a coach, you've got to be strong. You have to be strong. You have to have a little bit of maybe that, not a-hole in you, but not maybe just a slight bit of the chippiness to you. You got to have a little bit of that to you, both to motivate players, to deal with the media. I think it's very important. And he's got that in him. I love to see it. It was a great response yesterday. Thomas, I just love how the national media freaking out about Shedeur Sanders and how good he is at training camp. That's going to be an interesting story to track. They're definitely, they are a dog with the Shedeur Sanders bone, and they are going to chew on that thing endlessly, that's for sure. Does sound like he's been the better quarterback between him and Gabriel out there in Cleveland. Phoebe says, every time you bring up the draft, it reminds me that the Falcons gave the Rams a first-round pick. Yeah, I'm not happy about that one. I've even stopped thinking about they gave him a first-round pick. I feel like I reference it as Atlanta gave him their future franchise quarterback. That's how I reference that trade. Effing Atlanta. God, they were high. Atlanta's not winning that division. Atlanta's going to give them a top 6 to 7 pick next year. I'm telling you it's going to happen, you guys. I've already made my peace with it. All I got for my 67th birthday was a power bill. Well, happy birthday, man. Thomas says, I believe Seattle will make a trade before the regular season or at the trade deadline. It'll be someone we aren't talking about. I could see it, Thomas. I think John's very raptured by the thought of picking up guys either right that before the start of the year or in that trade deadline, and that he really does feel like I'm saving money, I'm saving draft capital cost and making these kind of moves. And we can bring a guy on who can be injected in the team very quickly and who can have a real instantaneous impact. And this has been proven true really pretty rightly with the guys that he's brought in. I know with Jamal Adams, it wasn't a great success story, but the first year he was in here, he had his best year. Sheldon Richardson was solid for you in the year he came in here. Jadeveon Clowney was your best pass rusher when he walked in here. Quandre Diggs came in and became the glue in that Seahawks secondary when you made the trade deadline deal for him. Carlos Dunlap was your best pass rusher down the stretch after you made a 7th round trade with the Cincinnati Bengals for him. Ernest Jones last year as a 4th round trade deadline deal was a smashing success, and he brought instantaneous impact when he came here in addition to that. So John's been not only active in this realm to do this, to your point on that, but he's also been very successful in taking this approach. I agree with you, though, Thomas. I think the same thing is going to go down with that. Dogzilla is seeing Olu and Haynes as the beginning starters was mildly interesting. That is interesting. Kind of what I'd expect. That's where they'd like this to go. You know, they're going to give Haynes that first run at right guard, I would say. Cattle says this is a no BS organization now. We won't tolerate any of the media garbage. Only reward hard work and good football. Amen, man. It's what I would love to see. No media BS, no false stories, no false drama, no trying to stir the pot for the sake of clicks. Let's lock this in, you know? We're trying to turn this thing around. We've been waiting 10 years for this thing to lock in. Let's go. Enough shenanigans, right? Enough of the shenanigans. Thomas Cox, thanks for another $5 donation, bro. Appreciate all of your support today, man. I was worried about Christian Haynes and Howell when I saw them at FanFest. Both were bad, especially Howell. Yeah, I mean, it stands out with Howell, and I don't know a pro quarterback that I've seen on the practice field. And admittedly, I haven't been a guy that's won a ton of practices and been, there a bunch. But it was as bad a performance as you possibly could imagine, watching him on the practice field. I mean, it was all the way around, from the throws to the decision-making to looking confused to not feeling the pressure around him. I don't know if Washington broke Howell. I don't know if Eric Bieniemy broke Howell, but he looked kind of broken out there last year in training camp. And I think that's, FanFest, that game, that's deep into training camp at that point. That's a lot of padded practices. We come back to, again, now you've got something tangibly you're working off of in your assessment, where these guys have been here for a while. They've gone through the OTAs. They've had the offseason training programs. They've had that time to get acclimated to where now you can make that assessment. And it's at the end of the training camp, not to mention that. So I agree. I think those are the times where you can pull away from that. And there's some things that are going to be some inherent truths that you can walk away from. I mean, we had one FanFest, I think 2 years ago, where Jake Bobo, I believe, led the team in catches and yards in that game, like 5-6 catches. And I think he had a touchdown reception at the end. And then he went out that year and played really well for you in a spot starter role at times as that extra wide receiver on your roster when you needed him. So there is the good and there is the bad that you can take from those practices, the FanFest, the final game in the stadium there, and kind of walk away from. I agree with that 100%. Well said, Thomas. Well said. Hopefully Haynes is ready to roll this year. Catalyst is no more repetitive. We've got to get better. Every single press conference following a horrible loss. Agreed. I think responsibility and taking the specific onus of where you were problematic in a game or what's going on with the team is something where McDonald will deal with it head on. And he will talk about it, I think, very specifically. And if the onus is on a mistake he's made or he's done something we put too much on them, or he'll be open about it. And I like that versus Carroll with the just kind of placating and sort of generalizing and not giving you any specificity, just being like, yeah, we got to do it better. And it's the kind of stuff that would lead you to Carroll being like, I don't know, we're training them and they're just not getting it. I mean, we got it out on the field. We're practicing up in the field. We're running through the exercises on the practice field, but the guys just not locking. We don't know what to do. You'd almost get to that point with him at times on some of these pressers at the end. Whereas McDonald, he's got a plan. He knows when it goes wrong, why it went wrong, and he knows what steps he's got to take to get it corrected. And that's just part of what makes him a really good coach and what made him a great hire here for our Hawks. Female or Seahawks, thanks for another $2 donation, bro. I appreciate you for that. It's good to see you in the chat today, too. I like how Mike protects his players after bad games. Yeah, you find a way, and it's the hard way to do this, where I think with Carroll, a lot of what he was doing was actually from a good place where he is trying to protect the team. That's the number one rule, of course, and it's going to apply to the coach. Protect the team. That's the importance here. And so Carroll was always going to do that. I think Mike does that as well, but he understands he can do that without completely dancing in vagaries and non sequiturs and speaking in cliches, that he can speak to specificity of, hey, we got to do this better. Our gap integrity was off with this. We've got to fill those holes better. When it comes to the offensive line, we've got to be more consistent in running the ball. I mean, there was even times last year where he's willing to go at a guy like Grubb and a couple of pressers to say, we should have run the ball more, and I'm not going to dance around that. I'm not going to lie to you guys on that. This is what needs to get done. I like it. It is a breath of fresh air, feed me. It really is. Catalyst says bird solidarity doesn't include the Falcons. Not anymore. Not when you're helping out our division rival, Catalyst. Not when you're freebie handing them a franchise quarterback for the hell of it. I mean, goodness, didn't you Falcons just make this mistake last year in signing Cousins? Oh, we're ready to go. We'll get Cousins off the Achilles. We'll be ready to go. And then you made the mistake and realized you weren't ready to go, and now you're ready to go? I kind of hate I do kind of hate the Falcons right now. Like, they're kind of on my list right now. Yeah, I think they're an unserious organization too, Catalyst. It's an unserious. Here's the thing with those edge rushers. Why are they getting the edge rushers in the first place? Well, because you missed out on Arnold Ebiketie, and because you took Braylon Trice in the 3rd round last year, and then he missed the whole year with an injury. Okay. So now you're going to bring in 2 rookie edge rushers that you're hoping bring instantaneous impact. Look, the guys are very talented. Sure, they are. But what's the track record of edge rushers coming in and their instantaneous results? Last year, the Indianapolis Colts general manager. Hell, let me play you the snap right. Let me play right here. Actually, I got it right here. I got it right here. Listen to how this guy talks. Listen to how confident he is. Just so sure that best pass rusher in the draft. We're the best pass rusher in the draft. Get him last year. What, 2 sacks? Best pass rusher in the draft. The first edge off the board. Couple sacks. Byron Murphy's first year. Impact's going to struggle a little bit. That's a defensive tackle, granted. But edge rushers tend to take a little bit of time to become what they're going to become. They don't walk in out of the gate just instantly what they're going to be. And you're going to hope that these guys can provide quantitatively valuable pass rush for you in that first year, and the both of them. And the Falcons are really gambling a lot on that. They're really gambling a lot on Michael Penix's health to hold up. They got Cousins there right now, but I think Cousins eventually probably gets moved to something like the Steelers or something before it all gets said and done. Yeah, I don't like what they've done, Catalyst. And those 2 moves were made to fix things that you made as far as mistakes on players you picked ahead of that you weren't happy with. And then you did it out of desperation. And why are you so desperate right now? Why are you letting this be your driving force of your organization? Can you not see how desperate organizations are just organizations that end up making endless amounts of mistakes? Those aren't organizations that get to the promised land. I don't get what they're doing. I really don't. Mr. Isaac, I've now met Matt Hasselbeck, Cooper Kupp, Byron Murphy, Abe Lucas, Warren Moon, and Sidney Rice. Let's go, Mr. Isaac. Hasselbeck's the best. I could see that. Dogzilla, who do we have besides rookie Zabel for left guard depth? Bryce Cable-Dew is your other left guard now, Dogzilla. I'm not sure that Haynes, Bradford, or Lumea can play left guard. But Cable-Dew would be your prime candidate to transition in there. Dick to Brandon, is the door shut on Bradford making to the starting lineup? I have no clue if Kubiak's offense is not suited to Bradford or not. Cheering for Zabel and Haynes. Stocking up on Tums. No, he's a fit. Remember with Bradford, he's an athletic freak. He absolutely is. And give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. But yeah, Bradford was a 99% relative athletic score guy coming out. And this offense could fit him. Sustaining blocks tends to be the big issue there, and just utter whiffs at times too with Bradford. And with this offense, sometimes if you just get the initial block, that's enough. If you athletically can get to the initial block, that'll be a plus score for you versus maybe other offensive systems that we've been operating here that require a little bit more sustaining with your block. So there could be more of an opening between the athleticism, and you can usually get the initial at least win from Bradford's perspective. But I don't think that he's a front runner to go take the starting job by any measure. Yeah, Lumea, Braden Fish could take a step back for me. Big part of his game is going to be working off those stunts and loops if the Rams can run that as much this year. His run defense is bad last year, and that's going to remain bad. So he's always just going to be basically a pass rushing defensive tackle. It's really what he gives them. Catalyst, yeah, Raheem Morris, also Zach Robinson, former Rams OC, is also the Rams' new OC. Oh, man, it's a weird offensive fit for Penix, too, kind of. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be bad. I could see it getting bad for them, really, with a couple of things going in the wrong direction. Penix's health doesn't hold up. Says I definitely like that we have way more guys to play the oversized edge we haven't had in a while. D-Law, Mills, Ivy, even Big Cat. Yep. Yeah. I remember on some of those snaps last year, you were still trying to rock Mike Morris out there. Trevis Gibson, Roy Robertson, Harris, Derek Hall. You've got guys that are much better suited to get this done now this year than you have last year. And as I've said, and it's not an overstatement, the power edges in this team and this defense are a huge part of this defense. Thomas says, I lost faith in Bradford. He needs to show me he can play because I'm done waiting. Well, he hasn't really developed a whole lot technique-wise, gotten a whole lot better from what he was walking in the door. And he was a pretty raw guy walking in the door, to your point on that, Thomas. So like King Bomber says, he's not going to be getting starter reps. He's going to have to prove it. He does have the physical potential that does still exist inside him, but it's going to take a hell of a coaching effort to tap into that potentiality, I think King Bomber, if Mills is healthy, then Morris is out for sure. Yeah. I think Morris is kind of on the outside looking in, even as it stands right now. Catalyst is the only thing that inspires confidence in Atlanta is the Bijan Robinson's a freak. So many touchdowns. He is a really good back. Yeah, he's been really good. Everybody wanted to kind of put a generational point on him. And so they go, well, he hasn't hit that spot, but he's been just a hell of a player for that Falcons team. And he's a good one. He's a good one. Him and Drake London are going to have to make that offense go. It sounds like they're potentially going to try to move Pitts here before the season. That seems to be the scuttlebutt. Thomas Cox, thanks for another $5 donation today, brother. Very kind of you, man. Very, very kind of you. I really do appreciate it. If I had money, I would pick Seattle in the over with the wins. I would too. I've been thinking about trying to get down to a local casino here and get the bet laid before the season starts. I really regret not doing it last year, Thomas, because I thought the 7.5 wins was an easy one to go and pick up last year and go, well, I think we'll be able to get this going this year as it is. So I would take it as well. I think the schedule's just so easy this year, in addition to the fact that you're expecting a 10-win team to take some steps forward from what they were last year, especially a team that's returning all of its defensive starters from the prior year. So it feels like kind of an easy bet to be made right now. Last year's felt like an easy bet to be made. And Thomas, you were here with the show that we did 2 weeks ago, looking at Vegas and how they've looked at Seattle and how they've not really been able to really correctly kind of figure out who Seattle is going to be as a team prior to the start of the year, and that they tend to undersell us more than oversell us. So I'd be in the same place as you would on that one. I think I'm going to try to get out there and lay a little bit of some dough down on one myself, because it feels like easy money right now, doesn't it, Thomas? It does feel like easy money. Dogzilla, is Spoon a little light for a run stuffer? Yeah, I don't know if I'd call him a run stuffer. I think that, yeah, I mean, he is a run stuffer in that for how he plays the cornerback position and how he tackles, he's a run stuffer. But he is also going to be a guy that you would put that on him, dogs a little, but then you'd also say that, look, he's also going to lose his share of tackles. So if you look at his missed tackle rate last year or the year before, there's going to be times that guys slide off his grip because he's just not big enough to bring him down. There's the famous play, and in fact, it's the biggest reception given up in Witherspoon's career in 2 years is a 40-yard reception. And the 40-yard reception happened on the play against David Montgomery last year where he comes up to tackle David Montgomery, and he basically gets bug windshielded on Montgomery, where Montgomery just blasts him. He gets dropped to the ground, gets up, ends up chasing Montgomery down the field, 40 yards down the field out of bounds. That's the biggest reception he's given up. But that's a representation a little bit of there's going to be times he's going to be in there to go make the tackle and he's just going to slide right off. And there's nothing he can kind of sometimes do about it in certain moments. But overall, he's a hell of a tackler, a hell of a run defender. One of the better run defending corners in this sport. Also a little bit of where maybe even more of that impact will be felt when you put him to the outside. And it's not now where he's got to play like a linebacker in there, where an Emawari can play more of that role. He gets to play a little bit more on the outside, and that allows him to be even more impactful in that part of his game, where has to get off blocks of wide receivers on the outside rather than getting off of blocks of like tight ends at times. King Bomber, there was a game last year where Morse had 3 snaps, and those 3 snaps were big runs that essentially lost the game. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, man. I mean, we showed a couple of cut-ups at the top of the show today, King Bomber. I think I included a couple of those cut-ups where Morse is on the field, and that exact thing does happen. Yep, very true. Phoebe More Seahawks, thanks for another $2 donation. Says, we got lucky if they had Murphy and the number 1 pick. We got lucky if they had Murphy and the number 1 round pick. Oh, you mean with the Rams? Yeah, that would have been seeing what they were able to get out of Fisk last year and manufacturing a lot of Fisk's production as a pass rusher and limiting around his run defense, knowing they would have not had to do any of that with Murphy in the run defending aspect, knowing they would have kept him at 3 tech, knowing that he would have been highly beneficial to him to be able to work off those loops and stunts that the Rams love to run. I think he would have even have surpassed Fisk's season last year as a pass rusher if he had been on the Rams team instead of ours. I think he would have easily gotten him to 11 or 12 sacks with how they run those stunts and loops and how problematic it was for offenses across the league last season. They struggled with it. Us included. Yeah, Kyle Pitts has been a very underwhelming number 8 pick. It has just not clicked in there with him. Yeah, the bobbled interception catalyst by Pitts. That was a brutal one. Thomas, I honestly believe Murphy's born sap. There's something about Murphy because he's extremely talented. He is, man. I think that talent is still true and real there. And I think once you let him loose and unleash him fully, and he gets to be into year 2 and things start to click into place and off-season weight program and knowing how to utilize him best, I think he's going to be a hell of a player this year. You're going to really feel the impact of why this guy was a first-round pick. Thomas, I'm done with guessing wins, but I believe Seattle can win 9 to 12 games. I agree. I think it's in the same place. I think that's very feasible. Addicted Brandon, is it too bad Lucas didn't do some workout with Bradford? Sigh. Then again, if I had wings, I'd fly over Lumen. Maybe he did. Maybe they did link up. I don't know. Catalyst Spoon's like a 40-pound disadvantage against Montgomery. He got destroyed. He did. And it's not a bad on Spoon on that. There's going to be times that that's just going to happen when you're a guy that weighs the size he weighs. I think it's a testament to Spoon's toughness that guy gets up on that particular play and goes and runs him down with an attitude. I mean, he plays the game you want it the way you want to play it. This is why Spoon's become my favorite player on this team. Is he plays football the way you'd like to tell a kid to play football in a peewee. Go play fast, go play free, go play rough, go play hard. Stick your nose in there. Don't shy away from contact. If somebody tries to block you, you take that as disrespectful. And boy, does it stand out going back as I've been peeling through the tape and looking at a variety of different things defensively and run stuffs and how this guy's played or how that guy's played. And your eyes just constantly are driven towards Witherspoon and that he's just playing at a different speed of everybody else. When Carroll made sort of the Polamalu comparison that I didn't quite understand as much when they made that as far as when they picked him on draft day, it certainly makes a lot of sense in how you see him play on the field now. And it's something that isn't always measured in statistics, but you will definitely be able to measure it with your eyes and see it there with that. Ricky says, do you think it was a poor tackling why cornerback Trey Brown wasn't re-signed? He missed a lot of tackles against the Rams in the final. Niners got him for cheap, though. He has shown he can cover. He's been a pretty decent cover man in the past, Ricky. He's got a little bit of what works with him is the same thing that works against Witherspoon to even more of a greater degree. Because with Trey Brown, I believe that he's sitting at like 29-inch arms or something like that. So the arm length is not just short, it's extremely short. And I've seen with Trey Brown through the years, there's times that he just can't wrap up. He just doesn't have the ability. And then when you're that short as 5'9" with short arms and you're going up against a big guy like a Jawan Jennings on the outside who's blocking you, you're going to kind of get blocked. You don't have the arm length to get off that block. You don't have the size to get off that block. I think in the best case scenario world, Brown would be probably more of a slot guy, but he is more of an outside corner than he is a slot guy. So I think the poor tackling was a little bit there at the heart of it, Ricky. I'll also say that I think last year with him in coverage, you didn't get the best version of Trey Brown that we've had here in coverage. The Viking game, for instance, I believe that you had to sit Woolen the first series or two in that Viking game for some off the field issues. So Trey Brown came in there and started, and he got picked on in coverage. Vikings went right after him in coverage. So yeah, not really a guy that's really just come forward in his game. I don't think he's had some good moments for Seahawks, and he did have some really good moments, but just didn't really ever kind of lock in. I don't think. One receiver to watch in college football is Denzel Watson. I'll check him out. Starting just about to start to put my list together of my guys I got to start scouting here for next year's draft and who I'm going to be watching this year in college football. So we got a lot of good wide receivers. Gal says, yeah, Trey Brown got smoked by Justin Jefferson. Not surprising, though. No, not too surprising. And it wouldn't be just that Viking game, but it just overall, I think under Mike Macdonald, he just didn't do a lot to elicit much excitement from Macdonald in his play. Mr. Isaac, when it's all said and done, we do want the Falcons to go to the playoffs and make that Rams extra first-round pick a little less valuable, laughing out loud. Yes, we would. I want to see the Falcons win the division. I do. I know I'm predicting I think they're going to have a bit of a down year here this year, but I would like to not see that be the case because, oh my God, giving McVay his next franchise quarterback. It's one of the hard parts you potentially have for the Rams right now is who is the guy you're going to move off of once you do go off of Stafford, and that decision might come by the end of this next offseason. And so having just an easy pathway to your next starting quarterback who's going to be hyper talented and giving McVay that kind of guy, I really don't like it. Young says Lions fans were admiring Spoon's effort the other day on Reddit and Instagram on that David Montgomery play. It speaks to how cool and good a player you are that your worst play of the year is also in a lot of ways one of the coolest plays of the year that you provide. Because he comes up there and he's not shying away from contact like Catalyst said above of a guy that outweighs him by 40 pounds. Doesn't shy away in the least. Comes up 100 miles an hour to come light that guy up. That guy gets him instead, like Marshawn Lynch does. Sometimes you're going to get got. But I'm going to get you more than you're going to get me. And that certainly is going to be the case with a guy like Witherspoon. But then to get up off his butt after he's been laid out, you got 3 Seahawks defenders right there who should be in there to make the tackle on Montgomery. So 99% of the players there would say, look, I just came up and got my clock cleaned. I can't even tell you what day it is right now. I don't even know what month or year it is right now. But rather than just kind of sitting there and looking at the birds spinning around in circles over my head and then recognizing the fact I got 3 guys that are on my team that are right there to go make the tackle, he gets up off of his butt and sprints his ass up. Those guys all blow the tackle and have no business doing so. Lame effort on all of their parts. He then comes flying across the field there to make sure that you force Montgomery out of bounds. It's a hell of a play. And if you want a play that gives you a snapshot of Witherspoon and what he's about, that's it right there. That's it right there. He's a hell of a player and already a star in this sport, in my opinion. Steven says nothing less than 10 wins. No going backwards. We better win the division. Go Hawks. Let's go, Steven. I love it. Let's go. Cattle says, looking at the 49ers defensive depth chart, those safeties, it's a little lean there. And Jair Brown hasn't fully clicked it into play there since he's come aboard. And you do have in Malik Mustafa, a guy who had a really good year, and he really gets downhill, and he's a hitter. He'll come down, he'll light you up. But he did have a torn ACL at the end of the year last year, Catalyst. So he is going to be a little bit delayed, potentially in getting back on the field. And of course, they lost Hufanga in free agency this offseason. So maybe a little thin there. I'd offer too, Catalyst, that the corner position for the Niners is also looking thin. Trey Brown is going to be your starter. You're going to ask probably more of DeMondre Lenore to work on the outside rather than the inside where he's at his best. Maybe not going to be as good for them on that side of it. So secondary is definitely a little bit of a part. I look at that Niners secondary and I go, there's some holes in there. No more Travarius Ward. He's out. There's some holes there. Dogzilla, despite losing Draymond, I'm good with a D. Help at nose tackle could be good overall, but it's a great team. It is. It's good. Well set up right now, Dogzilla. Really is. I don't know how much the loss of Draymond will hurt either. I don't think he had a bad year necessarily last year. Was able to create some pressures and have some moments of impact. I also think he wasn't really well suited to the power edge role. They tried to make that work with him. Seth, I hope Jaron Reed gets put there instead of Murphy too at the nose tackle. That's the ideal. King Bomber says, when's the last time Seattle moved up in day 3? I think you did 2 years ago. I don't know if it was LaMea, but I want to say 2 years ago that you moved up on that draft. Thomas, I don't understand why the media believe the players that either got traded from the Seattle or released will be better than they actually are. I don't know. It's kind of weird, and I feel like the Geno thing kind of represents this a little bit, where when Geno's here, he can't get any respect almost at all from the national media. He's basically clowned on right and left that we have him as our starting quarterback. And now the second he leaves and goes to the Raiders, everybody's like, Geno's definitely just a top 8, top 9 quarterback now in the sport. I mean, it just goes without saying he is. I mean, just, look at the body of work. And it's like, wow, that narrative spun fast, didn't it? That thing twisted weirdly. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a microcosm to other players here who do go on that, but I have kind of noticed the same thing a little bit. Jordan, I love the Falcons since Vic. I'm now a Falcons hater. That general manager has zero clue on how to build a team and how has given the Niners a shot at a quarterback. I agree. I look at the way that the team's being built and I'm like, I liked the Penix pick last year, but I did not like the Kirk Cousins thing. I did not like them 2 years ago trying to pay to build the defense up. We've learned very, very succinctly that that's not the way you build a defense, is by paying to make a good defense. You're going to paying for older players that are past their prime, and you're not going to build a particularly good defense, which is exactly what happened when they took that approach. And when you make a mistake, you don't want to follow up another mistake by trying to fix that mistake by stretching too far out to fix that mistake. And that's just what the Falcons have done with these 2 edge rushers, trying to overcome the lack of development from an Arnold Ebiketie and the injury that happened to Braylon Trice last year. And so they're like, well, we've got to just hammer this now. Overcorrection to rob too much for tomorrow for today when you weren't ready for today. I often say the biggest mistake NFL teams make beyond individual positional evaluations or coach evaluations, the biggest problem franchise after franchise that you see made, and it's consistent across the board, is a misidentification of where truly your team is at and what their capabilities are. You think you're better than you are. You think you're ready to contend when you're not even ready to get into the playoffs. And team after team will look at it themselves with these rose-colored glasses, and it wouldn't be so problematic if you weren't robbing from the future to make that happen today, to make that failure happen today. And that's what these teams do, and that's what I think the Falcons have done here. And I think on the surface of it looks stupid, and I think in retrospect it's going to look even dumber, especially when you look at the quarterback the Rams are going to get. You guys are going to be even mad, bro. You guys will be pissed about this when you see how this is going to play out. I'm telling you. I'm like a psychic on this one. I'm Johnny Carson when he got the hat on with the thing and he's trying to read the letter with his big old hat on. What was it? Somebody will remember the name in the chat, but he had a nickname for himself when he would do that. That's what this is. I'm telling you, this is going to go really wrong for the Falcons in this situation. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thanks for the $2 donation. Like when we got one down and Trey was offsides. I kind of forget that play / somewhat remember it. Definitely had some rough moments. And somebody was mentioned above Feed Me, the Rams game. There was definitely some lost tackles in that game. There were some completions given up in that game. I mean, that's kind of your chance to shine right before free agency. Even though the Hawks didn't have a lot on the line in that game, you did from Trey's standpoint. You're trying to go out there and earn yourself a free agent contract. And it just, some players, that it gets close to coming together. Some of it could have maybe been that the injuries that he had lower leg-wise early in his career just didn't allow him to ever really get back to, his once former self, because he had as impressive a rookie year for a cornerback as anybody not named Woolen or Witherspoon here in the last 10 years. So it's, that's the odd part, is it was like another one of those guys that sort of came in here and gave you his best play when he sort of first walked in the door, and then it sort of kind of stagnated a little bit. You got the Bengals game from 2 years ago where he played really good. He's got the pass breakup on T. Higgins down the stretch to give the ball back to your offense to give them a chance to go get the win. So there's some moments in there, but overall, just nothing. Karnak, thank you, Grandizer. The great Karnak. I feel like the great Karnak with this Falcons situation, where I've got the envelope and the letter up into my head, and I'm saying, Falcons give the Rams a top 5 pick in the first round next year. And then I open the letter up, and it is, what is the draft day trade of 2025? I so feel like that's the way it's going to go. Dom, I think the fact that if Emawari, Arroyo, and possibly Milroe Murphy, JSN, and Spoon turn elite, if all, Seattle will be scary. It is, you touch on a point that I think, whether it's those individual guys or just that we have a few guys that start to rise up now, that who's going to be the difference makers? It was the part I've referenced that was, who was it? It was Tony Gonzalez was talking about it coming in here as an analyst last year and looking at the team, and something that just stood out to him was, where are the difference makers on this team? Where are the all pros? Where are the guys that are not just a little bit better than average, but are difference makers? And that is kind of one of the final steps to me, that for this team to get to the place of being a contending team, is you need the young leaders to rise up. I think that is starting to happen. I think the vets are helping for that to occur as well. But now we need to get the difference makers to rise up too. And who are going to be those guys? But that's definitely the next part that you're kind of waiting for that to click in. And you got a lot of potential guys who could become those players, Thomas. You mentioned a few of them. I think there's even more beyond that who could become the guy. Boye Mafe. Can he come up and become that guy? One of these offensive linemen. We'll see. Trey Brown was offsides in the Vikings game when Woolen was out. Okay, there we go. So, but not only was he offsides, but he was giving up catches too in that game. And again, you've been waiting for your shot from Trey Brown's case there in that game. You've had to wait behind Joe, wait behind Woolen, wait for that chance to get back out there. Dealt with a little bit of some minor injuries. And now you got your chance to shine. And, look, Jefferson's a tough draw. Everybody's going to get beat up by Justin Jefferson, but it wasn't the greatest of looks there for Trey either. Catalyst says teams will be able to run on the Rams defense. Smaller defensive tackles, weaker linebackers, lots of too high coverages. Rams' weakness will be run defense. 100% it will. And you saw the Eagles in 2 different games last year take advantage of this. And not only weaker linebackers, but undersized linebackers, I would say, in addition to that. And to your point on the smaller defensive tackles, definitely smaller, missing the bigger one techs in there. I mean, they're really going to try to get by at times with 2-3 techs out on the field at the very same time. Boy, that is trepidatious territory to enter into, in my opinion. That's danger town right there. We did a little bit of that last year with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, and it didn't always work out great for us. And that's with much more talented guys down there to try to make it work than what the Rams have. I like Kobe Turner. He's a good all-around player, but Braden Fisk is a one-note guy and what he's going to do. And with Puna Ford's become more of a 3-tech than a nose tackle anymore at this point, too. Be very interesting. Grandizer, the great Karnak Kane. You need to get a turban now, laughing out loud. I do. I got to go find one of those, man. Maybe I got to rip off Carson's act with that. That's not been copywritten, right? I could do that. It's going to go bad, man. I got a sense on this one. I got a twinging in the loins. Falcons are about to give up a tasty first-round pick. And Femi, I do think Spoon is a difference maker. I think he's already a star in the sport. I think the national perspective and local fans would even be like, I don't know if he's quite got there yet. He has got there to me. He is at that point. He is that dude. I don't need 7 interceptions in a year to know that this guy brings that kind of impact. He's a hell of a player. Hell of a player. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up on that note. Good hour and 45 minutes on in today, as we went a little longer here today, and we'll be back tomorrow looking at a little bit of Charles Cross. If you guys could for me today, hit that like button, as it does help out the channel, helps me grow and show up on all those algorithm searches on YouTube, people looking for hot content, trying to figure out what's what and where things are going. I really do appreciate it if you guys could do that for me. And just a couple other quick programming notes. We, of course, are going to be doing a meetup for Seattle Seahawks, not Seahawks fans, but for NFC West Roundtable. It's going to be an NFC West Roundtable in early October. We're going to be meeting up in LA. I know it's a bit of a trip there for Seattleites to come down, but if you want to come down, links down in the description section below where you can click that link for $300. You get yourself tickets to the game. We're all going to be seated together in the stadium. We got the night before. We're going to be meeting up at the bar. We're going to be doing tailgating prior to the game. It's going to be a great time. We've had some really good turnouts and some really good signups. So if you want to join up, we'd really love to have you do that. The link is down in the description section. Again, you're going to have to get your own ticket to fly down, get some hotels and all that other stuff. But it's a cool stadium. It's going to be a great experience. I'm really looking forward to being able to meet those guys, meet up with some fans out there and have some fun. So it's not a Seahawks game. It'll be a Thursday night game, early October there. I think it's October 4th or something like that. But do please click that link if you get a chance. As well, on the Believe Podcast Network now, we are over there, so you can find me audio podcasts of these live stream shows as well over on that side of it. If you're just looking for audio-only version, we're popping on over there. Thank you guys for watching today. Appreciate the great discussion as ever and all of the very kind donations, as you guys are always very nice with that. And I appreciate you guys rocking with me here throughout this off season as we've been just kind of rolling along. We've got a lot of shows here still prepped up. We're going to be looking at Charles Cross tomorrow and speaking about the fact that this guy's about to become a $20 million a year man. And he is going to be well worth it. He has earned that contract. He's a great left tackle. For a guy that you saw videos even last year talking about, is Charles Cross a bust? He's nowhere close to a bust. He is legitimate. He's really good. Maybe not great, but really good. And absolutely has fit to the potential you thought you were getting when you made him a very high pick up in the first round. In fact, the highest left tackle pick that you've made since Russell Okung. Friday, we're coming back with Witherspoon, and we're going to be looking at Mr. 21 Savage himself, and I'm going to be making the case to you guys that this guy is a star. I'm going to be trying to show you how good a player this guy is without it looking necessarily to where you can measure this up in statistical impact. He's got the good statistical impact, too, when you look at certain markers of it, but you really got to dive into the tape with Witherspoon to get a really good understanding of what he brings to the field. And I'll tell you what, nobody plays harder, nobody plays faster, nobody plays with more reckless abandon than Devin Witherspoon. So we got shows loaded up. We're going to keep it rolling here throughout this off season. I thank you guys for watching today. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, again, do hit that like button if you guys do get the chance, as I would really, really, really appreciate it. Again, thank you guys for the cool, great discussion. Gattle says, we never high on Braden Fisk. I respect that they got a lot out of him as a pass rush, but trading up for him, giving up a second, and blowing some blocks in critical games like the Eagles was poor. Yeah, you went and got him, I think, as much for I want to know if it was desperation, I would say, but you lost Aaron Donald. You needed a 3 tech. You wanted to get Byron Murphy. You lost out on that chance of it. You got a little bit desperate in that sense. They were able to utilize him at his best in that way, like you say. I mean, they really used him off the stunt, the loop, the twist game to the maximum to get that productivity they did. But there's also a price to be paid with having to run that much stuff. And look, the negatives with him as a run defender cannot be overstated. He is a guy that's got 31-inch long arms. He cannot hold up at the point of attack. You can move him off the ball. And that's going to continue to be an issue there for that Rams team, especially if they've got to trot him out there at times on early rundowns. He can be attacked, and I'd go after him. I'd have audibles built into play to go right after him if I saw him on the field, lined up as a 3-tech run stuff run a play. I'm going at you all day long. We'll see what he can do this year. We'll see if the Rams get a little bit more out of him as a run defender, and if maybe he can come a little bit more forward in that way. Those arms aren't getting any longer, and 31-inch long arms operating from a defensive tackle position that's kind of tough. That makes it hard. Makes it a long day. Thank you, J.O. I appreciate the kind words on the end. Thank you guys for watching today. Back in less than 24 hours with some Charles Cross talk. But I had fun talking with you guys today, so we'll be back very soon. Hawks are making some moves. We're building up the case. I'm slowly with each of these shows, yes, looking at individual corresponding parts of this team, but corresponding parts that can all work together to bring out the best potentiality of a team, to bring out an elite team, to bring out a contending team. What has to happen for that to occur? Hopefully you guys can see with each of these individual shows that, like bricks and me building a building with these bricks, brick by brick, show by show, that we're slowly building up of what that team has to look like to reach that high water mark. What has to come together? What has to slide in right? What has to not be a deficiency for that team to find that elite state, that elite status? And so we're going to slowly continue to build it up. Charles Cross, pillar left tackle tomorrow. Devin Witherspoon, already a star cornerback in this sport. Bit by bit, brick by brick, I'm going to build this argument up until we eventually reach a culmination show on what it will take fully for the Hawks to go make a Super Bowl run in 2025. So just a little teaser there for you. And hopefully that gets you hyped. Hopefully that gets you ready to think that this isn't just a year. We got to wait again. We got to hold. We're still just in the process. We got to still let the development happen. We're still a year out. We still got to wait. No, we don't necessarily have to wait. Dream big this year because you never know. It might just lock in. It might just hit. That's the way it goes when you got so many good, young, talented players. Is you never know when that spark is going to strike, and then you got yourself a full-fledged wildfire on your hands. So have the faith, Hawk fans. Dream big. You might just be rewarded for it, and don't you ever forget. Don't you do it. Don't do it. Go Hawks.